And let's see, third time's the charm. Hopefully things are working this time. All right, I'm going to rewind it just for a little bit, and I apologize for the technical difficulties. I'm not certain what's going on, but we're going to pick up a little bit. Again, this is dealing with Danny, the Truthstorian from MBK. Kind of gives his introduction, and he's talking about Juan Rodriguez, who he declares is the first African that has actually set foot in the Americas, of what we know as North America. He's only giving you half the story, and there's a reason why he's painting this picture for it to be only half the story. So we're gonna tell the other half of the story, or we're gonna do what I like to call is Danny the Truthstorian uncoded. So what he's talking about here is Juan Rodriguez or John Rodriguez, that you will see without a shadow of a doubt why he's hiding certain things and why this is becoming so difficult to get with and get behind. But you're going to see why here shortly. I'm going to go ahead and play it. If anyone is listening in the chat, if you could give me a one, let me know. I want to wait before I get started. I think we finally got the kinks out here and getting everything synchronized. So I'll give everyone a couple of minutes, and I sincerely apologize for the delay. And thank you all for hanging with me there for a little bit. I noticed some other people went live when after they saw me going live. I wonder why, but that's another subject for another time. But we'll do what we got to do, and but you're gonna notice some things here once we get to the other part of Danny the true story, and why he's only telling just a fraction or a segment of the truth. And I'm hoping that, like I said again, that everyone could actually hear me here. Uh, Seeing a couple of people. All right, if you let me know if you can give us one, but no sellout. I'll tell you, this is gonna be the last time. We're gonna get it right this time. I got a feeling we won't get cut off anymore because I had to circumvent a thing or two. So let me know if you can hear me out there, brother. No sellout. Give me a one or one if you can hear me out there, and I'm pretty sure some others will come back here shortly. If not, I know they'll listen in a little bit later. I know they're probably over there being entertained on some of the other channels, but I promise you I won't be long at all. But I'm gonna go ahead and pick up where we left off. This is dealing with Juan Rodriguez, and as to why the Danny, the true historian, is not giving you all of the truth. So I'm stopping here in just a moment and do a breakdown of Juan Rodriguez.
Opponent sailed to the last voyage to the Hudson River. It says finally that when the said Masu, who was a captain, sailed away from the river with his ship, a mulatto born in Santo Domingo, who arrived there with the ship, stayed ashore. They had given this mulatto 80 hatchets, some knives, a musket, and a sword saber. Thus, the international arms dealer, first on record, because he traded those tools with the Native Americans. Since they had given him the said goods in payment of his wages and therefore had nothing more to do with him. He had declared that he would not come to this country, which was Holland, and that he would have jumped overboard if they had not allowed him to depart. Nobody of the said Masu's crew stayed ashore in the said Virginia, which was the name of this area at the time, other than the said Spaniard. So further court testimony, which I won't read through the whole bit, goes into them stating this fact and that he was a black rascal. This is an actual Dutch records of how the reference to Juan Rodriguez was described. This is just a little bit more about that, which I won't go to explain the story. How Juan Rodriguez basically told him he wasn't going to Holland and that he would fight to the death to stay right there. They come back a year later, a man named Adrian Block. That's one name you remember. And they use Juan Rodriguez because he became a trader with Native Americans of New York City, black man. All right. So the evidence for that, Sonetta, is this. You can go to City College and the Dominican Studies Institute did all of the research on this. And in fact, from 159th to 218th Street on Broadway is named Juan Rodriguez Way after the first resident of New York City who was a black man, Sonetta. Right by Presbyterian Hospital, you look up and see the street signs on Broadway. That's the first non-native resident who we saw was described as a black rascal from your place, Sonetta, Dominican Republic. Fact.
Brother, why you
So
gotta
what
keep
happens
saying
is
my
New York
place,
City.
brother? Why you gotta keep saying
No,
my
I'm
place?
just saying, I don't mean it like that. I'm just
Just,
saying that's something to be
just
proud
All right, I'm gonna pause it right there because I want you to see the games that are being played. I'm gonna give you the rest of the story dealing with Juan Rodriguez. Now, Juan Rodriguez was born in the Dominican Republic. That is correct. But what he doesn't tell you is that his father is Portuguese. Oh man, he seemed to have left that part out about his father being Portuguese. Now I'm going to read you the backdrop of Juan Rodriguez being Portuguese, and then you have a better understanding as to why he did not want to go to Holland and he chose to come to what we know as New York today because he did not want to go to Holland for this reason. Juan Rodriguez or Jan Rodriguez, Portuguese, was the first documented non-Native American to live on Manhattan Island, and as such considered the first non-Native resident of what would eventually become New York City, predating the Dutch settlers, as he was born in Santo Domingo, now the Dominican Republic, a Portuguese sailor to a Portuguese sailor and an African woman. Notice how they throw an African woman, but they never tell you like where this African woman is from. I love how they do that. They give you the details on one party, but won't give you the details on the other. How amazing! How beneficial is that? But let's go on. And it says here that he would eventually be. He was the first non-native resident of what would eventually become New York City, predating the Dutch settlers. He was born in Santo Domingo, now the Dominican Republic, and was also considered the first immigrant and the first person of African heritage and the first person of European heritage and the first merchant, the first Latino, see what they how they doing in here, and the first Dominican to settle in Manhattan. So he's covering all of the above. Danny doesn't tell you that portion of it. So here's the kicker. Juan Rodriguez came to Manhattan in 1613. So if Juan Rodriguez is the first one of African descent to come to what we know as the United States of America, aka North America, then all of these other Negroes prior to Juan Rodriguez were not African. So who were these other Negroes? Hmm. Those that were coming from the Caribbean, perhaps. Those that were coming from Mesoamerica, perhaps. Those that were coming from South America, perhaps. So now, Danny, the Truthstorian, we have a dilemma here. Anyone prior to 1613 that was labeled as a Negro or a mulatto was not African. Now we got a problem, don't we? But let us continue, ladies and gentlemen, because I don't want to bore you. But I just want you to get a glimpse of where we're going here this evening. I promise you, I'm not going to keep you long. Like I said, this is a whole hour, and we'll probably break it down into three segments because it really gets to where the rubber meets the road. Because I want you to get how, when you're not given the whole story, how things can be very deceptive. So he's talking about why he wanted to come, because we're going to get to why he wanted to come to North America and not go into Holland, as he was saying. Said he was raised in a culturally diverse environment in the Spanish settlement of Santo Domingo. Rodriguez was known for his linguistic talents and was hired by a Dutch captain, Thesis Vakelijk Mosel. I know I butchered that. Thank you, brother. No sellout. Of the Joan Tobias to serve as the translator of a trading voyage to the Native American island of Manhattan. Which means, wait a minute, which means, in simple Doodle's terminology, that if he was hired by the Dutch to be a translator to the Indians of Manhattan, that would say that the Indians in Santo Domingo, aka Dominican Republic, was speaking the same language as the Manhattoes. Oh my goodness. I don't know if anybody caught that. I don't know if anyone can even hear me. I'm not certain. I hope that you can. But that right there should say something. If you all can still hear me, please give me a one. I hope that you can. I hope that you all are following me. I wanted to stop that for just one moment so you can see that anybody, any of these Negroes prior to 1613, according to Danny, the Truthstorian from MBK, that everyone else had to be a non-African. And he doesn't tell you that Juan Rodriguez, his father, was a Portuguese sailor, and then Juan Rodriguez didn't want to go to Holland. Why? Because he didn't know the language. But he could speak the language of those that lived on the island of Manhattan, or called the Manhattoes. I want, please let that sink in. He was sent to translate for the Dutch in what we know as New York today, meaning he knew the language. So now we get into this Ladino. Now we're going to get to this Ladino part of it. I'm going to continue and let Danny keep talking and let him put his foot further in his mouth. So y'all just bear with me. I'm going to go ahead and get it started a little bit, and I'll stop just a little bit. Like I said, I'm not going to keep you all too long. I thank you all for being patient. I have finally figured it out. Thank you, Brother Bones. I appreciate you. In case y'all don't know who's up there, who was hitting those switches back there, y'all know about the producer, the engineer in the studio, Brother Bones, Cobb, I appreciate your tutoring session earlier, brother. All right, here we go. So y'all can hear from Danny. You call him the Truthstorian. I call him the Lie Storian. Here we go.
Hold up.
You know, the Dominican Republic. My mother was a
No.
African,
My point
so-called
is,
African American.
here's my point is that,
I'm an
right.
African,
That's
brother. I'm an
my point.
African, brother.
Oh no, we are. That's my point, though.
Okay.
That presence in Dominican Republic, Cuba, all these places is an African presence that is there that we need to be aware and mindful of. Is my point of that. We automatically attribute it to some imaginary race coming in calling Hispanic the Latinos, but we don't understand that the African presence was there, and this is proof of that. Is my point. You see what I'm saying? But
Yes,
as
sir.
far
Go
as
ahead.
history is concerned, when it comes down to it, and New York City recognizes this is an actual plaque down on Broadway that reads, "This tablet marked the site of the first habitations of white men on the island of Manhattan. And it goes into explain the 1613, 1614 story. There was no mention of Juan Rodriguez on that plaque. So part of the activism and things that we try to do is to get recognition and a plaque set up because we know in the record state that the first inhabitant of this city, the one called the greatest city in the world, is in fact a black man. Those are the facts. And those are the things that we need to present to the city council and everyone else to get some recognition for. That's him. But we get the story of Henry Hudson and Hudson River, Hudson, New York, all those things named after this guy who came in 1609 as explorer for a company called the Dutch East India Company. And he comes to the region and begins to trade with them. That area is called later, a little bit called New Netherland, because he came for a Dutch company, and Holland is in the Netherlands. And so what you see here on the left is the map. People probably can make out the New Jersey face, whatever, but that whole area is New Netherland. All the way from Connecticut to Pennsylvania was called New Netherland. And on the right, in particular, you got New Amsterdam. So up at the top, you see New Harlem, which was established in 1648. You see New Amsterdam. You see a place called Brooklyn, established in 1646. A place called New Utrecht, and what have you. Now, this is in America right here that the Dutch established this, right? So after Henry Hudson, the Dutch West India Company comes. And this is a fact, and we can start saying
Question,
this. New
brother.
York City, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Question, my brother. I'm sorry. At this time right here that you're talking about, where
Uh-huh.
was the African?
The
The
African
African.
presence in New York,
Yes.
in New York in particular.
Okay.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. Where was the Africans at?
Okay. So as far as the records go, like I said, the we have two in this New York region. We have two records. One is a man named Esteban Gomez, and he came around 1575 or whatever, right after the Verrazano, and he is said to be of Moorish descent. And actually, the Hudson River was named Tierra de Esteban Gomez, or the land of Esteban Gomez. So that's one instance. And then we have this other instance with Juan Rodriguez.
I had to stop it right there because he just said previously that Juan Rodriguez was the first African. Now he's going back to the 1500s talking about Gomez. And they said, and he's saying before because he's mentioned as a Negro, but we also know that Moors, aka Arabians, were known as also called Negroes. I gave an example of that of DeSoto's translator. Now you're starting to see how all of these Negroes are translating. We already talked about Juan Rodriguez translating to the Manhattoes, and we know what the Manhattoes look like. But the name never changed to Manhattan, and the name never changed. So we know without a shadow of a doubt that the Manhattoes look like the majority of the people that are in this chat right now. So then he goes back in the 1500s and talking about Gomez. So if Rodriguez is the first African, and we know that at least his father was Portuguese, and he's going back to the 1500s and talking about Gomez. So by process of elimination, Gomez cannot be an African. But I'm gonna let him go ahead and keep digging himself deeper. This is one of the reasons why Danny will not have a one-on-one conversation with me. He will not have an intellectual dialogue with me because he knows that I know that the gig is up. All right, let's continue. I just wanted to bring that out right there. So we already know that he said that Juan Rodriguez was the first African over here, and that was 1613. Now he's going back talking about Gomez and the Hudson and all the rest of that. So let's go ahead and continue.
Now, the Africans that we talk about are coming, but they're coming by virtue of this company that we're about to get into. So then we're going to start seeing where the Africans show up. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, yes. Because I know at one time we wasn't always in Harlem. We was downtown at one point in time, right?
Right. We're going to, right. I
Okay.
got you. Yep.
Go ahead,
I'm
brother.
going to
Go
show
ahead.
you.
Do your thing.
Yes, sir. I got you. Yeah. Okay. So what I want to be clear is the statements in here, and I want people to take this and go ask any historian or whoever they want when I state these things and challenge it. But I'm going to say New York City was founded by a pirate company, which I'm going to tell you. And the man who has run New York City the longest had a peg leg and owned the most Africans in New York City. I'm stating those things as facts, and now we go to proof. So this company is called the Dutch West India Company. And this is the ones that's now controlling this area of New York. Founded is a man named William Uselinks, and on the picture to the right is where the Dutch West India Company house is in the Netherlands. We can skim through this, but this is the charter basically for the Dutch West India Company, which founded in 1621, and they had a monopoly on the West Indies and the slave trade, Brazil, Caribbean, and North America. So in their charter, which you're going to get to specifics, it says, and we find by experience that without the common help, blah, 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 the people designed from hence for those parts cannot be properly protected. So this company is created. We go further to say that they're going to control the navigation, trade, and commerce in parts of the West Indies and Africa. And so this company was set up to build forts for trade in the slave trade in West Africa and the West Indies. And they're the ones that are set up to make these deals, and they control New York to 1664. Now, proof of this is even in the seals that we have of New York, and this is how we teach kids to remember these things. So the original seal from New Amsterdam, which is New York City, as you can see on the left, has the Dutch West India Company logo in it. That's the original seal from New York for 1654. On the right, this is 1623. You're going to see a beaver in the center of it, and you're going to see why that's important. So they built these things, right? Upon that, that's the region of New Netherlands or New York that they control. So they ran the colony and the fur trade and the slave trade. I keep mentioning the furs for reasons that we're going to see. So these are the beavers. This is the original seal. This is a primary document of New Amsterdam. So before we had New York City, this is what the seal was for this town. And you see at the top, the GWC is the letters for the Dutch West India Company, showing that they ran this whole thing. Now, Fort Amsterdam, this is important. This is our first one. So some of the trading and slave ports, but the West India Company had were named Amsterdam after the city that it was founded in. So in West Africa, in Ghana, they have a Fort Amsterdam, which was founded in Spain. Now, Fort Amsterdam, this is important. This is our first one. So some of the trading and slave ports, but the West India Company had were named Amsterdam after the city that it was founded in. So in West Africa, in Ghana, they have a Fort Amsterdam, which was founded in 1745. They took control of it, the region from the Portuguese. So that's West Africa. We got one. In St. Martin, we have a Fort Amsterdam to show their presence in St. Martin. In Curacao, we have a Fort Amsterdam. And as you can see on the left flag is actually the flag of the Netherlands, and you see the relation to that in the West India Company boom. So now we get to New York City, where we are. There was a Fort Amsterdam in New York City. The West India Company built it, and guess who was responsible for actually the labor for it? The Africans. They
Oh
built the
man, here
fort.
we go.
And
It's
this was
about to
set up
get
to
good now. I'm
trade
gonna
with the
stop it here in a minute.
Lenape Native Americans who was here. And Sinetta, this is why Broadway runs through the whole island. and runs directly into the fort, which I'm going to show you where it was because the Lenape lived uptown and Dykeman and beyond, and would come all the way down Broadway to trade beaver at the fort. That's why Broadway runs to the whole island. And so where that fort ends up is this place right here that is crazy now, that is now the museum for the Native American. This sits right at the beginning of Wall Street. Right in back of the bowl, that big building is this building. And in fact, we have the primary source for it. On the right, you see the plaque that says this is the site of the Fort Amsterdam built in 1626. Within the fortification was the church and blah, blah, blah. Right there is where the fort was, what the Africans built. This is an old picture from a map from the 1660s showing you that fort, showing you the West
Okay,
India Company flag
uh,
on.
I'm gonna stop it right there for just a moment. Now you heard him say that right there at the base of Broadway is the American Indian Museum. And he said, here's the primary source on that plaque. Nowhere did it say anything about any Africans. The Dutch were responsible for building the forts because they built the forts in West Africa on the coast. The so called West Africans did not build any forts. It was the Dutch that were responsible for building the forts. And if you listen to Cab Grand Rising show, we already broke down that the Natchez were the fort builders, the fortified cities over here. So how are you going to ship Africans? Because you don't hear anything else. You heard them mention two Africans, right? So far, two Africans. And one that we know wasn't an African because it was prior to 1613, because he says that Juan Rodriguez was the first African. And we know without a shadow of a doubt that his father, Juan Rodriguez's father, is Portuguese. So we only getting half at that. So he mentioned two supposedly Africans, but Africans built the fort. Now we're going to keep going on because it's going to get real good. It's going to get real good. He talked about the plaque that is there and no mention. And see, these are the ones that he's a part of a society that is changing everything that was American Indian into African. And people trying to be politically correct or allowing them to, because it gets back into, if you're not from here, go back to Africa. We were always here. It's gonna get good, and I'm going to supply you with sources, so no one can say that Doodoo said something and he was just talking out the side of his neck. But we're gonna continue. Here we go.
It. This is the fort that the Africans built. We built New York City. So when you take your kids to Disney World, they're so arrogant enough that this slave trade and pirate company is in a place that's supposed to be the flags of the countries that developed America. So in Epcot Center, you see right on the right there, the West India Company flag is flying right there. They didn't hide nothing from us, right there. So that's something to see next time you take your kids to Disney World. Now you know what that flag is. So this flag on the left is the flag of Netherlands from 1572. The one on the right is the flag of the West India Company. See, all they did was add their logo, show you that they was the company representing the Dutch. This is the flag of New York City. Do we see the connections? Orange, white, and blue. Orange, white, and blue. This is letting you know that company founded this place. These are little tricks for you to understand that the person on the left represents one of the Dutch people. The one on the right is the person that they were trading with. You're going to notice once again in the middle, there are beavers showing you that New York only became important because of beavers. That's it. We got a number 1625, which I'm going to show you is arbitrary. So here goes the flag of Manhattan on the left, orange, white, and blue. There goes the flag of the Bronx on the right, orange, white, and blue, all colors of the slave trading company that brought our ancestors here and founded New York City. So when we go to Amsterdam, we'll see a further connection because we think we're looking at a map of New York, but we're not. In Amsterdam, we're gonna find a place called Amsterdam. We're gonna find a place called Harlem. We're gonna find a place called Brooklyn. This is a map of Amsterdam, not New York. We're gonna find a place called Newkirk, and for all my Brooklyn heads, know about Newkirk Avenue, right? And a place called Norwood, which we'll get to. There's another one. Staten Island is named after the Staten General, as you can see the logo on the right, which was the ruling party of Holland. All these names around here is the clues showing you that the Dutch built it from Harlem all the way to Brooklyn. So now, Sarnetta, even us in our damn sports team, the colors that we have are the colors of the West India Company. So the Islanders, orange, white, and blue, come from the West India Company. The Knicks come from the West India Company. The Westchester Knicks. This is the original logo at the bottom of the New York Knicks, who is a Knickerbocker dribbling the basketball. Knickerbockers
Man,
were the
that shit.
Dutch
This is hot
businessmen
right
or
here.
merchants.
Yeah.
Huh?
I said
The
this shit
Knicks,
is
all
deep
the way
right here. Go
down. So
ahead.
we're wearing, yeah. Let's
And
go. We're gonna get deeper.
I
This is
got on the
crazy, right?
Knickerbocker hat right now as you doing this joint.
I can't even think, but this is my point. You see? You see? But these are also visual aids to teach our children a story. You see what I'm saying? So when we take them to the sports game and we see the Knicks sign, they got visual clues, or when they see the flag, which is in every city park, they understand the story of New York. The key is when we get through this, we'll see the African presence and contribution to it that's not in these symbols. That's what's missing. And so now, through the end of this, we're going to show you how they was right there. So the state bird of New York City is the eastern bird. Look at the colors of the bird. The same colors as the slave trading company that founded New York. Orange, white, and blue. And that's the New York
All
state
right,
bird.
I'm gonna stop it right there
All the way
for
down to the
just a little
bird.
bit because we're gonna come back to that. What Danny doesn't tell you again is that sorry about that cough drop is that their colors changed to red, white, and blue. He's not going to tell you that, and he's not going to tell you what the orange stands for. But I put the link in the chat, but you all can go ahead and go along with me, and we're going to take a look at Fort Orange, New Netherland, as what he's talking about here with the Dutch settlement dealing with New York and Albany, New York. Said Fort Orange was the first permanent Dutch settlement in New Netherland in the present day city of Albany, New York, developed at this site. It was built in 1624 as a replacement for Fort Nassau, which had been built in nearby Castle Island and served as a trading post until 1617 or 1618, when it was abandoned due to frequent flooding. Both forts were named in honor of the Dutch House of Orange Nassau. Due to a dispute between the Director General of the Netherlands and the patroonship of the, I don't want to butcher that again, but y'all know that's Dutch, of Rensselaerwyck, close enough. Thank you, brother, no sellout. Regarding jurisdiction over the fort and the surrounding the community, and the fort community became an independent municipality, paving the way for the future city of Albany. After the English conquered the reign, they soon abandoned Fort Orange, renamed Fort Albany in favor of a new fort, Fort Frederick, constructed in 1676. Now, I haven't said this publicly, but I've talked about this several times in the back chat. Is that the everywhere the Dutch went, The British went right behind them because we understood we're still talking about timelines. The British and the Dutch, aka those are the Netherlands, aka the Vikings, were at war. And everywhere the Dutch went, the British came right behind them to wipe them off the face of the planet. You're going to see that all over Europe. You're going to see it all in Asia. You're going to see it all in Africa. You're going to see it all in the Americas. Because when the British start coming along and really start chugging along in the mid to late 1800s, they had what's called the Ironsides. They had the iron belly ships, the metal belly ships. So that's how they were able to sustain the oceans like they were. But anyway, let's get to the history on why it was called orange. Let's go to the history. In 1624, a ship of 30 Protestant Walloons, French speaking people from what today is known as southern Belgium, landed in New Netherland. 18 of the men were sent to the location near the present day Albany under the direction of the Dutch. They built Fort Orange, roughly 2 miles, 3.2 kilometers north of Fort Nassau, which was prone to flooding, and about 5 miles south of the uh, confluence of the Mohawk River and the North River. Now, here's the problem. He just said that these slaves, African slaves, were building all of these forts. See what happens when you don't continue go by what somebody says instead of doing your own research. That's why I said even tonight, don't go by what I say. Please don't go by what I say. Please look. I know what it knows, but the bird is the word. But bird, bird, bird. You see, then you turn it around and you're seeing here that it specifically were the Walloons. So let's look at the what is a Walloon. Let's click on it and let's see. Well, let's just see here. What does it say here? The Walloons. Hmm. That they are a Romance ethnic group native to Belgium, principally in the south region of Wallonia, who speak French and Walloon. The Walloons are a distinctive ethnic community within Belgium. Important historical and anthropological criteria bind Walloons to the French people. More generally, the term is also extended to refer to the inhabitants of the Walloon region in general, regardless of ethnicity or descent. Besides French and Walloon, the majority of the Walloons also speak various regional Romance languages and dialects such as Picard and Lorraine. Walloons are described as being descendants of Gallo Romans or Gallo Romans, those Gauls, with Germanic Frankish admixture, in this regard similar to the French. Now let's see who these Walloons are. Let's go on down. You already see they symbol here. Is the rooster. Let's go on down and see who they are. Etymology. The term Walloon is derived from Walha, a Proto-Germanic term used to refer to Celtic and Latin speakers. Oh my goodness. Walloon originated from the Romance languages alongside other related terms, but it supplanted them. The oldest written trace is found in Jean de Hayen's memoirs, de Jean sur de Hayen et de Luke. I know my French is still bad again. I've had it for a while. I haven't spoken in a while. Luginez in 1465, where it refers to the Roman populations. Here we go, dealing with these Burgundian Netherlands. Its meaning narrowed yet again during the French and Dutch periods and Belgium independence. The term designated only Belgians speaking a Romantic language. And I don't want to bore you all, but it gets back to that they were calling these Walloons oranges. So this is where you get to the orange color on this flag of the Dutch West Indian Company that he talks about. Because they don't ever mention that there was an East Indian Dutch Company as well. Splits of the same company. They never mention that. But as you see here, these are no African slaves. But we still gonna get here. We still gonna get it. It's gonna get greater. Y'all give me about 8 minutes and it's gonna get real good. But I wanted you all to see there is zero Africans. The Dutch West Indian Company was to transport indentured servants from one landmass to another, along with supplies and vegetation and equipment and precious metals. You're going to see that these people were not what we say as slaves. They were indentured servants. Oh, it's going to get real good. It's going to get real good. Y'all just bear with me. But let's go. Let's go back and let him continue to talk. But y'all, I put that in the chat so y'all can click on the links and you can find out that these Walloons, they were called oranges, where you get Syracuse Orangemen. I know they call orange today, but they used to be called the Orange Men. So now we're gonna get back and see what else the Lostorian has to say. Go ahead.
So
It's
what
gonna get real
happens
good.
is they try this plan of introducing these Europeans to come do it and trade. They can't pull it off. Eventually, they have something called patroons that come in, and these are rich folks from Holland, and they give all these lands, saying, "Okay, you need to populate these people. I mean, populate people on these lands for you to own it." And so it becomes significant because they start to populate the people here. So what they did, Sayonara, in 1629, since they could not do it by themselves, they then gave something. This is a primary document called the Freedoms and Exemptions. And what that does states here that number 30, the company will endeavor to supply the colonists with as many black as it possibly can on the conditions hereafter to be made without, however, being bound to do so to a great extent for a longer time than it shall see fit. So now they're saying to you, this is historical fact that they could not make it without the Africans or do anything without the Africans. And so they said, in order for this to be a successful project, we got to give you some Africans. That's a fact. The record is called the Freedoms and Exemptions. This is 1629. And they're the ones that run in New York City, right? And so they promised them to finish the fort and what have you. So we'll get to that. Now, Sonetta, here's the question. Phil Jackson, is he the missing link? Why did I say that? He played for the Knickerbockers and won a championship in 70 and 73. And he coached a team called the what? Albany Patroons, right? And this is when he won the championship before he got to the Bulls. Now, what we tell our kids is since they like sports, I just told you 2 slides ago, who were the people that the Dutch gave the rights to populate the land? The Patroon. We know who the Knickerbockers are. So when our kids are interested in sports and we talking all the Phil Jackson stuff, now you got a way to slide history in there because he coached the team and look at the symbol. There's a Dutch shoe where the basketball is. And now you know what a patroon is. So that's just how we get the kids involved when they talking in sports or whatever to slide some history in there. So when we look around the city now, we see all of this stuff. Brother Reggie went to City College. Ask him what the name of the sports team is. It is the City College Beavers, showing you how important Beaver was to the foundation of this city. The company did it for what? Commerce, exploitation, colonization. Let's go. So now we get into a name called Peter Stuyvesant. He was one of the directors of this company. He ran New York City for the longest, from 1647 to 1664. He ran the trade of Africans in Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, the West Indies, and New Amsterdam.
Okay, I gotta stop right there. You see how he ran through Aruba. Hold on, let's do this in real time because I like doing stuff in real time. He says slaves in Aruba. Let's see. R-U-B. Let's see. Let's see what comes up. Let's see what happens with Aruba. Let's see what Aruba is in case we don't if we don't know where Aruba is. Let's see. Huh. Yeah. Let's see about Aruba. Where is Aruba? Hmm. Aruba is an island and a constituent country of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in the southern Caribbean Sea. Let me say that again. Let me say that again because we're looking at that in real time. Do I need to hold on. Maybe the font is too small here. Let me zoom in. Let me get it. Yeah, yeah, as I'm getting a little older, my sight's getting bad. Let's blow it up a little bit. Yeah, y'all see that? Yeah, that would be an island and a constituent country of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in the southern Caribbean Sea. Wasn't even the Northern Sea. It says Southern Caribbean Sea. It is closer to South America than it is to anything else on the planet. So that is pretty far away from Africa. Would you all not agree, brothers and sisters? I told you today we're gonna stop playing. I'm gonna have to continue this tomorrow. Like I said, we're probably gonna do it in three parts because we ain't even got to the meat of the matter yet. But I just wanted to put that out there. See how he slid past Aruba. And then like, yeah, well, slave Africans. Okay, all right. Let me rewind that just a little bit. Let me go back just a little bit so y'all can hear this. Hold on, man. I'm like too short. I ain't tripping no more. Here we go. Let me just
He had a peg leg.
let me move that
He
back a little
went
bit.
to City College. Ask him what the name of the sports team is. It is the City College Beavers, showing you how important Beaver was to the foundation of this city.
And we
This
got a whole lot
company
of
did it
beavers
for
though. We
what?
got Oregon
Commerce,
State beavers. Anybody know about the
exploitation,
Oregon State beavers? Come
colonization.
on, son.
Let's go. So now we get into a name called Peter Stuyvesant. He was one of the directors of this company. He ran New York City for the longest, from 1647 to 1664. He ran the trade of Africans in Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, the West Indies, and New Amsterdam. He had a peg leg with silver rings on it. He also owned the most Africans in New York City. In fact, he blamed the Africans for why the Dutch lost the New York City to the British. All right. I told you that New York City was founded by a slave trading company, and its longest running leader was a pirate with a peg leg. Let me show you my proof of that. This is a statue of Peter Stuyvesant in the Netherlands, peg leg, as you can see. This is a statue of Peter Stuyvesant in Aruba, because I told you that the Dutch West India Company control Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. Speaking of Curacao, this is a statue of Peter Stuyvesant in Curacao that once stood on top of a school building that the school children
My mouse is gone mad. Hold on. Because I wanted to stop it there. I know there was pause for a little bit, but I wanted to stop it there because Peter Stuyvesant did not blame it on any African slaves. I'm going to send the link and I'm going to put it in the chat. I was trying to get it up here, but I'm going to put it in the chat because it is to a book. But I want you to get the link just so you can read just that section of the book. That who he places the blame squarely on. He says specifically, no, no. He says specifically that it was the Indians that were to blame. The Indians that were to blame. And I'm going to give you the specific name of the Indians right here in just a moment. It says here that the blame was thrown upon the innocent Raritan Indians. I'm just going to have to say that again. The Raritan Indians were to blame. Nowhere did he say anything about blaming it on Africans. Nowhere in there did it say anything about blaming it on Africans. It says here, I'm going to read this segment. I'm going to put the thing in the chat. Like I said, it's to the whole book. He said, some European vagabonds, as it was afterward clearly proved, stole some swine from Staten Island. The blame was thrown up on the innocent Raritan Indians who lived 20 miles inland. This is what started it. This is what started it. Not Africans. Hold on, put this. Let me send. I'll send y'all this link. I'm not even gonna play anymore. I don't have time to play with Danny the Lostorian anymore. I just don't. I did it one time, but not anymore. So let me put this in the chat for you, and you can read it on your own leisure. As that old hip hop song was, play it at your own risk. You can play this at your own risk. There you go. Bam. So y'all go ahead and keep following Danny, the Lostorian, and we're gonna get it crunk. Like I say, I'm gonna wrap this up in I got about another 20 minutes and I'm gonna be done. Like I said, we only 26 minutes in. Okay, let's go.
Fought to have removed. Why? Because of his involvement in slavery and his racism. This is a statue of Peter Stuyvesant with the peg leg in New York City. As you can see at the bottom of the sign, Peter Stuyvesant, Director General of New Netherlands, and there you go. That's your pirate with the peg leg who was the slave trader whose name is Stuyvesant. But he is also buried in New York City in a place called Stuyvesant Town, which is in the Bowery, which is a Dutch word for farm, which we'll get to, right there. So now, Sonata, we look around our city and we like, damn, Stuyvesant name is everywhere. And this dude was a slave trading pirate. And we see that Stuyvesant High School, which is probably the most academically challenging school in the city, is named after him. And their logo is what? A peg leg pirate who we now know was a slave trader. Collegiate High School, which is another one, is named the Dutchman, and that logo is what? A peg leg pirate who we know is a slave trader. But it gets crazier than that because Stuyvesant Town, which is in Manhattan, and where I'm from, like you just asked me, Starnetta, is named after a slave trading pirate, and that's Bedford Stuyvesant, Brooklyn. There was also a pack of cigarettes called Peter Stuyvesant, as you can see right in the middle. There goes your Illuminati symbol because that's the symbol of the West India Company right in the middle of the cigarette package, named after the slave trading pirate. So here goes some primary, the shoulder to back this up. So the laws and ordinance of New Netherlands state that the West Indian colonists kidnapped and brought Africans to New Amsterdam. Now we heating up by now. Let's bring the Africans into the picture. So it says the Negroes lately arrived here in the little ship, the White Part, from the Bight of Guinea. Africans were actually bought from Africa. I know some people are in denial of that. But here you go. It says in the footnote, in note, November 3rd, 1654, the Amsterdam Chamber of the West India Company proceeded with their ship, the White Port, to the coast of Africa for slaves and to dispose of them in New Netherland, which we know is New York. Tend to and as such would tend to the increase of the population and the advancement of the said place. So when we say they couldn't do it out the Africans, there goes your proof right there. This was the first cargo of slaves imported into New Netherland or the present territory directly from Africa. There were Africans before, which we're going to get to. This is the one brought directly from Africa. This is another one just showing you that they were set up to favor these plantations, is what they say. In order to favor this plantation the more, we hereby consent on the proposal there that shall be at liberty to bring in their own ships from the coast of Africa as many Negroes as they shall have need of for the cultivation of the soil, and that on the conditions that they go in. Pulling them straight from where it says, let me just read this last part, who were willing to embark on the slave trade were not to go farther west on the coast of Africa from Ardre or at uh, the Popo stand and were excluded from the entire of the Gold Coast and blah 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 because that was left exclusively to the company. All right, so more proof. Here goes another primary source stating that the trade was going on between Brazil and Angola. Resolved that the inhabitants of New Netherlands shall be allowed to export their country produce under suitable duty in their own or chartered slips to Brazil and Angola
All right,
on
let's
these.
stop. Let's stop right there. Here, where he comes back again. Like I said, I've already touched on that Guinea, but I need to touch that on that again on another live stream and just really break it down. Now, now let's do this. He's talking about the laws and ordinances of the Netherlands in 1638 through 1674. He said the Africans were imported from Brazil and Angola. Now, we already know Brazil was home to the Indies, the Indios. These were Indians. And I would love to get into these wars and battles that were going on in just in the Caribbean alone with ships stealing Indians from this one and putting them on that one, this one from that one, and this one from that one. Not Africans, Indians from Brazil. I'm going to say that again. Indians from Brazil. And you're going to find out that these Angolans, all of these Angolans were listed as free persons of color. I'm going to break it down here in a minute. All of them were listed as free persons of color because they were Portuguese. The Portuguese was having relations with the people in that area just off the coast, not in the inland of Africa, just off the coast. These were Portuguese. So he's talking about Portuguese and Indians from Brazil, Portuguese from Africa, and Indians from Brazil. And you're going to find out that none of these were slaves. Because you're going to find out what happened. Because I got to get to this part before we wrap it up. So let me get back to Danny, and let's see what we got here. Let's go on back to see what he's talking about.
These conditions that they go forth and show you why. This is the trade of sugar for Africans. Boom. So now Africans are starting to see them around, right? Here goes more proof. Here goes the Jewish involvement in this. right? Laws and ordinance of New Netherlands state that, and whereas some of the Jewish nation of Juan Dilion from Curacao have requested permission to buy and transport to the aforesaid island some Negroes who were to come to New Netherlands. That is primary proof for you of the Jewish involvement of getting Africans to New York City and their involvement in the slave trade from their records. The name is Juan de Leon, and there are others. Primary source. Next. Here's another primary source stating its involvement of Angola in this, that ships returning may take freight from Brazil, but those coming back from Angola are to bring Negroes to be employed in farming. This is
I'm
from
sorry, but
Peter
I'm going to
Stuyvesant.
rewind it for a little
We
bit
too have the
because
right to
I
send a
want
ship to Angola with an assortment of
just
provisions and bring back Negroes. This is the people that's established in New York City. Their records. The name is Juan de Leon, and there are others.
okay. Caraceo, Caraceo. Let's come on. Let me just do this. Let me do this again. Let me do this one more time. Let's go on and see what this place is. Let's go. Let's do it one more time. Even though we talked about it, we talked about it when we were talking about. Oh man, here we go again. Here we go again. These Negroes from where? These Negroes from where? What? Oh, where? Then let's see what this. This is their website. Oh, what does it say? Where the wind takes you? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Kick back. Make yourself at home. Oh yeah. Look at all these Portuguese up in here. Let's see what is this island located again. Live it up. Let's go. Oh, they got surfboards and all that good stuff. But let's see where's this place? Where's this place? Let's go on and let's go. Let's go on back here. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Let's go on. Let's go back here. Let's do this. Told y'all like too short. I ain't tripping no more. Let's go back here. Come on. Let's find out what this place is. Let's talk about it. Huh? Even though y'all, I know y'all seeing it all in there, right? Y'all see it all in there, right? Where it talks about, oh my goodness, it is an island in the Caribbean Sea. Oh my goodness. I'll say that again. I just wanted y'all to scroll through that so y'all could just see. It's an island in the Caribbean Sea. Where are all these Africans coming from again? But we're going to get to what was really going on and what was happening and who were the ones that were put in bondage as slaves and who was not. Who was hired as cheap labor, as you're going to find out, and who was not. But I just wanted you all to see that, what he's talking about. Oh, Africans from here, and Africans from there, and Africans from everywhere. And I'm just trying to figure it out because I haven't seen them yet.
Primary source. Next. Here's another primary source stating its involvement of Angola in this, that ships returning may take freight from Brazil, but those coming back from Angola are to bring Negroes to be employed in farming. This is from Peter Stuyvesant. We too have the right to send a ship to Angola with an assortment of provisions and bring back Negroes. This is the
Notice he
people that's
said
established in New York
employed.
He
He didn't say
So where were they
enslaved.
going? This is
He
a
said
fort in Angola
employed from
that they
Angola.
took from the Portuguese. Africans were extracted from here, sent to the New World. Here's a primary document for proof. This is the landing of that Gideon ship that we talk about with 290 slaves, 153 men, 137 women. Primary. Now, the Africans that Sarnetta asked for. The first 11 Africans of New York City is what we're going to deal with. So there was a grand design. I'm just give a little background from the Dutch to get at the Portuguese, thus their pirating of ships. It says to seize the Portuguese Spanish possessions in Africa and the Americas in order that the Spanish would not collect enough money for their war against the Netherlands. The plan was to first seize the capital of Brazil and then the main Portuguese fort on the coast of Angola and Luanda and whatever. So the Portuguese and the Dutch are at war, pirating each other's ship. This is just another primary source from the 1653 stating that what encouraged everyone at this juncture to equip a ship to inflict damage on the Portuguese. This is coming from the West India Company. It says, which is key to us. However, the Negroes captured with the prizes taken at sea, right, may be sent with knowledge of the government in Brazil to such places as the purchasers choose. What's that saying? If you snatch some Africans from the Portuguese ship, you can send them wherever you choose. Now, in 1625 or 1626, Africans and Atlantic Creoles were kidnapped from Spanish ships. What's that got to do with her? We're talking about the first 11 Africans in New Amsterdam. The first African, now we need to pay super attention. The first 11 Africans were brought to New York in 1625 or 26. Here's the kicker. We know who they are. We know their names. The names are Paulo Angola, Little Manuel, Simon Congo, Big Manuel, John of Fort Orange, Anthony Portuguese, Plain Antonio, and Grazia Angola. These are the first 11. Yes, I know it was 8. We'll get to the other 3 in a second. So we know their names. We also know this, that they're
Okay, I gotta stop him right there because he keeps coming on again and talking about these being Africans. And I'm going to show you. I'm not going to have time. Like I say, you have to tune in again. But I'm going to show you everywhere you see Angola, Angolans, they were free persons of color. And we're going to get to why Danny, the Truthstorian, as y'all know him by, I call him Danny, the lie storian. I'm going to break down what he's talking about. And you can check this out for yourself. He says Simon Congo. Congo, as we know it in Africa, did not exist. It did not exist. I'm gonna prove it to you. As I put in the back chat, there was a famous boxer who had the Rumble in the Jungle with George Foreman. Where was that fight? Somebody, please tell me where was that fight? Where was the Rumble in the Jungle? Anybody know? Anybody know what the Rumble in the Jungle was? George Foreman, Ali, Boomaye, Ali. Anyone? If y'all tune into and go to my NoPal account, I'll send you some NoPal bitcoins. Who can get it for me? See, little Yost, man, you already ruining the class, man. There's always one that's smarter than everybody else in the class. Little Yost, don't do that, man. I already see you, man. Anyone know what a rebel of the jungle was? I'll tell you. It was, yeah, there you go. Kappa Choppa style, Zaire. Uh-oh. This is 1974. But no such thing as Congo. Not from Africa, it wasn't. Uh-oh. But I'm going to tell you something. There was a show that used to come on in the 70s called Danger Island. And the guy would run around and he would say nothing but one word. He'd say, Chungo, Chungo. And he act like a monkey and flip through the trees. And you're going to find out that those were called Chungo, which means monkey, gets back to the monkey tribe in South America that got transported by the Itza to Northern Virginia, and you know them better today as the Pamunkey. Uh-oh. Congo never existed then. It was Zaire. So how is someone named Simon Congo unless he was Chongo? Uh oh. Uh oh. Didn't exist. Now, let's go on. We already talked about before when you see Angola is free, and I'm going to prove that. Oh, I got 3 minutes, so I got to go. 3 minutes. The other part that he tried to use was Jean, right? Fort Orange. We already discussed that. That's Walloon, a mixture of from South Belgium that spoke French in that area. So that's already done. So that eliminates one, two, three, four of those. Now we get to Anthony Portuguese. Oh man, do I even need to say that? Do I really even need to? Do we even need to have that discussion with Anthony Portuguese? And I'll deal with Klein Antonio a little bit later. That you're gonna find out that he was Jewish. But we're gonna get to let's do little Manuel and big Manuel in Portuguese. So we've already eliminated most of these so-called slaves that were here to build this fort. But Lil Yost, you already on to something as to why Lil Danny Boy won't tell the truth. You're gonna find out why. But man, we only got 2 minutes left, and I apologize, and I'm gonna let this play just a little bit, and then um, tomorrow we'll get to where the rubber meets the
That
road.
names, their African names, reveal their backgrounds. We have Apollo Angola and Agrazia Angola, and we saw that there was a Dutch fort in Angola. We have two men, one named Simon Congo, the other named Peter San Tome. Sao Tome and Congo were controlled by the Dutch and Portuguese. So we know where those names may come from. I'll skim through this. We also have people called Atlantic Creoles. We have a Jan Francisco and an Anthony Portuguese. This is important because people who doing research may see these names and not realize that some of them are actually black folk, right? And so they were, I'll read through this. Atlantic Creole is a term in North America to describe the chartered generations of slaves and indentured workers during the European colonization of the Americas before 1660. These slaves had cultural roots in Africa, Europe, and sometimes the Caribbean. They were of mixed race, primarily descended from European fathers and African mothers, although not all were mixed race. Some had lived and worked in Europe or the Caribbean before coming to North America, yada, yada, yada. So now you see that we have names like they had surnames such as Chavez, Rodriguez, and Francisco. We said that the first resident of New York City was what? Juan Rodriguez. He was an Atlantic Creole. Now, these first 11 Africans were owned by the company, not the colonists. They were put to work what agriculture, which is tobacco and farming, and municipal work. They built Fort Amsterdam, they built Wall Street, and used for cutting wood. Here goes proof of this primary source. This is from the 1600s. It says Jacob Stuyvesant was an overseer of the Negroes belonging to the company, constantly employed with said Negroes in the building of Fort Amsterdam, which was completed in the year 1635. There is your primaries when we say that Africans built New York. Here is the proof. All right. So that's part of it. So we got them building the fort. 1639 is the year, as we see. Let's keep going. So it's talking about more of them building the fort that we speak of and that we saw. This is that fort in Fort Amsterdam. That long street leading up to it is Broadway, and this is where
Okay,
Wall
I
Street
got
is.
to stop right there because I promised to be on time. But one thing that I want to do is since my main man Lil Yost already put it out there in the chat, you're gonna find out that Danny, oh Danny boy, is related to. Let's put this one in there. Let's put this in there. Let's go ahead and do this. Let's do this. Anthony Johnson, slave owner. Let's do this and let's do this in real time. Let's do this together. A man control of his own destiny. Let's see here. Let's talk about Anthony John Stone. Then we talk about he said he was a black Angolan known for achieving freedom and wealth in the early 17th century in the colony of Virginia. He was one of the first African American, here we go, property owners that had the right legally to own a slave recognized by the Virginia courts. Held as an indentured servant in 1621, I'm going to say that again. Held as an indentured servant in 1621, and the reason why, oh, Danny boy, won't tell you that these were indentured servants and that they were owned not by slave masters, but owned by the Dutch West Indian Company because they had to pay off the debt of the voyage. Once the debt was paid off, it usually took 5 to 7 years. You were listed as a free man, a free person of color, and you were given a lot of land along with currency. Now, y'all don't believe me? Let's keep on reading. Let's go. Let's read about Anthony Johnson. Says here, held as an indentured servant in 1621, he earned his freedom after 7 years and was granted land by the colony. Y'all see that? Indentured service, paid it off. He later became a successful tobacco farmer in Maryland. Oh, we're going to get back to that tobacco in New York City again on tomorrow's show. He said he attained great wealth after completing his term as an indentured servant and has been referred to as the black patriarch of the first community of Negro property owners in America. But let's see who these slaves were that he owned. Early life. Johnson was captured in his native Angola by an enemy nation and sold to Arab slave traders. Now y'all can believe that if you want to. Y'all can. Like I said, I got some prime real estate in Southeast Louisiana to sell to you if you believe that. It said, and they sold his services as an indentured servant, Antonio, to a merchant working for the Virginia Company. Why didn't they change his name? Why didn't he have an Arab name? Why does he still have a Portuguese name? The Angolans are Portuguese. And it said he sailed to Virginia in 1621 aboard the James. The Virginia muster or the census of 1624 lists his name as Antonio, not given, and recorded as a Negro in the notes column. Historians have disputed as to whether this was Antonio. Later, Anthony Johnson, as the census lists several Antonios. This one is considered the most likely. Johnson was sold as an indigent servant to a white planter named Benet. He went to work on his Virginia tobacco farm. Slave laws were not passed until when? 1661. Slave laws were not passed in Virginia in 1661. Prior to that date, Africans were not officially considered to be slaves. Such workers typically work under limited indentured contract for put the mouse on there, put that curse on there. For 4 to 7 years to pay off their passage, room, board, lodging, and freedom dues. In the early colonial years, most Africans in the 13 colonies were held under such contracts of limited indentured servitude. Let me say that again. Gotta rewind the tape. Most Africans in the 13 colonies were held under such contracts. You heard Brother Bones always talk about labor disputes, contracts of limited indentured servitude, with the exception of those indentured for life. And those were indentured for life because they were criminals. Now go back and read your 13th Amendment. That's where this came from. They were released and contracted. They were released and contracted a period with many of indentured receiving land and equipment after their contracts expired or were bought out. Most white laborers in this period also came to the colony as indentured servants. Macadon one. Hey man, let's do this. Because all these Wikipedia, guess what they do? They give you, there you go. There you go. Let's go on down here because they got the little numbers bound. Let me click on the number here. Let me see. Let me see. Equipment on the ball. Now let's go to number five. What does it say about number five, the fifth source? Number five. Let's look at it. Thank you, Macadon one. You go here and say you can go to PBS, History Archives, Indentured Service in the U.S. All these books right here. See all this, look at all them sources. 32. Woo! Look at all these other sources right here. Mm, mm, Look at all them external links. Africans in America, PBS.org, and I want to tell you they Angolans and they were indentured servants. And didn't happen until 1661. And then what happened during that time? We need to talk about what happened with Anthony Johnson, Anthony No Name, Anthony the Portuguese, Anthony Angolan. But can we talk about what happened during that time? Can we talk about what happened during that time? Let's go to the case of suit. It says when Anthony Johnson was released from servitude, he was legally recognized as a free Negro and he became a successful farmer. In 1651, he owned 250 acres. 250 acres and the services of five indentured servants. And out of those, how many were white? Can y'all see that? Let me blow this up, man. Let's stop playing today. Let's stop playing today. It said out of those that he had, let's look and see what he had. It says here that out of those that four were white, one was considered black, four were white, indentured servants. And that's when he went and they said, hey, one of the servants said, hey, I've already paid my dues. And that's when Anthony Johnson turned around and said, oh, I can have them as an indentured servant for perpetuity. Anthony Johnson started that. Now I'm going to wrap up, but I'm going to say this, and we're going to come back tomorrow. Danny, old Danny boy, the Truthstorian of MPK, the lie historian, won't tell you that he's a descendant of Anthony Johnson, which is why he is pushing all of this African slave trade crap. It is what it is. Ask him. That is why even when the other Holiday Inn Express, shout out to Pillsbury Doughboy, when he asked him about his ancestry, he's like, yeah, well, they from Africa. Yeah, and I've been traveling places. He never could answer that question. He could never answer that. No, I'm saying he couldn't. He wouldn't answer that question. Why? Because he's a descendant of Anthony Johnson. That is why he will not have a conversation with me. Because Danny and I go back for some years. He and I were supposed to have an intellectual debate by Robert's rules. And MBK told him, don't go up against James Flames, Doodoo Vision, aka Choctaw Jimmy. Why? Because I gave him all of my primary sources, and in exchange in the debate, you're supposed to give each other your sources. It's not an aha moment. You get an opportunity to study each other's sources. I studied his sources, he studied mine, he backed out of the debate. Ask him if he talks to you, because he won't talk to me. Because he knows that I know that I know that he knows that I know that he knows he's a descendant of Anthony Johnson. But we're going to get to the rest of that when we talk about, because I'm going to prove to you without a shadow of a doubt that Angolans were free persons of color after they paid off what I just read of the room, lodge, the travel, the food, the whole nine, and their freedom dues. That is how the Dutch West Indian Company got paid. It was like a timeshare. You think anybody know about timeshare? You'll never pay them off. But anyway, they were just like a timeshare, and that's how they got paid. Come on, son. That is why they didn't. He didn't belong to anybody specifically, but they still owed their debt to the Dutch West Indian Company. Same thing went on with the Dutch East Indian Company. Do not let the smooth taste fool you. Angolans are Portuguese. That's why he was called the Negro, the Portuguese. Come on, son. But I'm going to prove it on tomorrow. Until then, in the words of that great thespian, Jerry Springer, take care of yourself and each other. I'm out.